Well, some local residents took part in a political tea party of sorts this morning, reenacting a part of American history. Today marks 234 years since the famous Boston Tea Party in 1773. That was the day colonists dumped tea into Boston Harbor in protest of British taxes. Today, supporters of the Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul reenacted the event.
Ron Paul supporters marked the 234th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party by reenacting the historic event right here in Austin. Lots of cheering as dressed-up tea partiers threw boxes overboard into Lady Bird Lake. The tea boxes were marked with different themes the presidential candidate is against, like the IRS and NATO. Similar grassroots tea party rallies took place in Boston and other cities.
They marked the anniversary of the Boston Tea Party to rally for Republican presidential hopeful Ron Paul and call for a modern-day revolution. They raised millions in a single day online and gathered in Boston to make a statement.
Ron Paul becomes the $6 million man. That's the headline on Politico about the Republican presidential candidate's astounding fundraising accomplishment yesterday, the Boston Tea Party.
Online, Ron Paul fans who populate the websites and forums where you can actually follow along what they're trying to do to raise attention for this candidate. And now reaching into their pockets for a second time to record-breaking effect. And with the Ron Paul campaign at their website reporting they're up to over $18 million this quarter.
We are learning now of a rift in the movement behind the Tea Party protests planned for tomorrow around the country. In order to really understand this internal conflict, we actually have to go way back to 2007 in our cheap time machine. All right. In the Ron Paul for President campaign, a bunch of his supporters developed a plan to fly a giant Ron Paul blimp to Boston. And when the blimp got to Boston, they were going to dump boxes of tea into the Boston Harbor. Is the real story here, is the more honest story here, that the Tea Parties are in fact the Republicans trying to run off with the Libertarians' idea?
Really quickly, who would have thought that Ron Paul would be the Republican presidential candidate with more influence on the Republican Party in 2010 than any of those other guys that we covered in 08? Not Fred Thompson, not Mitt Romney, not John McCain, but Ron Paul, Godfather of the Tea Party movement.
Town. Has Ron Paul succeeded in changing or moving the political debate after 25 years of being in public life?
I say this with amazement, but it's becoming more and more clear that we live in the age of Ron Paul, Judge. I mean, you stop and think about it. Who's the father of the Tea Party? It's Ron Paul. Not only is he the father of the Tea Party that won the majority of the House for Republicans in the 2010 midterms, but he's the father of so much of the discussion about the budget, about the debt ceiling, about taxes right now. This is the age of Ron Paul.
Supporters of Congressman Ron Paul back in December 2007, celebrating the 234th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party with rallies across the nation and an online money bomb that raised millions of dollars for Ron Paul's presidential bid in 2008. Congressman Ron Paul's candidacy was arguably the spiritual godfather of what's now become the Tea Party movement. Joining us now is Dave Weigel, a senior reporter for the Washington Independent.
I kind of got misty-eyed looking at those old Tea Party videos. I was at one in 2007 in Georgetown, where Ron Paul activists put things like Federal Reserve and unsound money on boxes, and then jumped and smashed the boxes after they threw them on the floor. So they really did invent all this stuff.
Which one of these guys gets the lion's share of the libertarian dollars and passion, frankly?
Oh, I think Ron Paul. I mean, there's one thing about Ron Paul is he was kind of the godfather of the Tea Party. And
conservatives will gather across the country the day that taxes are due this week to protest President Obama and taxes. They are calling the protests tea parties, as you may have heard. They have been warming up to the idea by mailing tea bags to Washington. Is there some Ron Paul revolution in the teabagging, do you think?
You know, it's funny. They really did come up with the concept of the Tea Party. In 2007, actually, is when they started referring to some of their events as tea parties. It is curious, though, as you point out, they do not use the verb tea bag.
Look, you Tea Party people, here he is, right? You guys need somebody out there to be a point man. I know they don't like that. They like to be decentralized. But I think Toss will be the good guy.
Ron Paul.